Hello people of the internet, I'm CEO for CEOTheProducer.com and the Producer's Blog, and today we're mixing some vocals. Okay people, so welcome back to another tutorial. Now today's video is about mixing vocals, and it's loosely based around a blog post that I wrote a couple of weeks ago, and it's called Mixing Vocals That Don't Suck. I'll put a link in the description to this blog post, and I suggest that you go and check it out, as it really goes in depth about all the elements that I do in mixing vocals, or the basic chain that I use in mixing vocals. So in every vocal that I mix, I usually go through 3 stages. The first one being control and correction. Now at this stage, I tend to correct any issue that I might have with the vocal. So say the vocal is too boomy, so I'll adjust it with a bit of EQ, or the vocal is too sibilant, so I'll use a de-esser to adjust that sibilance, and all this sort of stuff, all of this corrective work. The second one being fitting the vocal into the mix, and at this point it's about leveling, it's about a little bit of effects just to blend in the vocal a little bit with the mix. And the final one is the final polish. Now the final polish is about the overall energy of the vocal and the final effects that I might use, so say delays at the end of a phrase, or all that kind of creative work. But let's start off from the first stage, the control and correction stage. Now, I have a vocal right here. It's the same mix from Carlos Gonzalez from the drum compression tutorial from later a couple of weeks ago, and I'll play a little bit of the vocal, and so you can get an idea of what we're talking about.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
So the vocal is really well recorded, and that's a plus. That will really help us get a great sound. But the thing is, we have a little bit of sibilance, and some of the peaks, like this phrase right here.
Me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
Stuff like that is just jumping out in volume, and it's gonna send crazy the compressor that we're gonna add at some point in the chain. Now, I usually start by adjusting all the peaks, the bigger peaks like this one right here, with a little bit of automation. This automation will make sure that the peaks are a little bit more level, so the compressor doesn't have to work as hard. And at this stage, I used, in Logic, I have a gain plugin that allows me to do this, because if I were to use the automation is post-fader. So if I have a compressor before the fader, the automation won't be affecting the compressor. So I want to affect the signal going into the compressor. So I use this gain plugin to do just that. So let's listen to that, and as you can see, I have a few minor adjustments right here and right here, a couple of the peaks, and let's listen to that.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
So you might not hear it at first, but if you check the meters, the output meters, you can see that the peaks are not jumping out as much. I'll actually mute it so you can really see it.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
And now with the gain automation.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
So it's a little bit more even. Now, the second stage would be to remove a little bit of that sibilance because it's really annoying me. So I have two De-Essers right here, and the two both are serving two different purposes. Now, the first one is to remove a little bit of that spittiness that there's in the vocals, and you can hear it on. Let's see.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
So there's a bit of P's and T's that are a little bit too harsh. So I have a De-Esser set at 9 kilohertz, and I found that this frequency was around the spittiness of the vocal.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
So just really minimally reducing a little bit of that harshness of those plosives. Now the second DS instead is doing the real work. Now the second DS is set at 5K, around 5K, and let's listen to what it's focusing on. Now let's listen to the vocal with the De-Esser.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
And without?
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago.
Now, to me, the De-Esser is really controlling the top end, and it's really making the top end and the S's a little bit more consistent.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
Now, of course, we could go really specific with the automation and remove all the S's or reduce all the S's, and we could control the S's much more that way. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm gonna do it with more with De-Essing. Now, a good process would be to do a combination of both. Now, on the automation, I did only the peaks. I controlled only the peaks, but you could eventually do both peaks and a little bit of De-Essing, then add a bit of De-Essing that is just slightly removing the S's or just slightly reducing the S's, and you'd have a really clean and controlled vocal. So it might look crazy that I use two different De-Essers, but they actually make sense if you think about it. So one is doing one thing, one is doing the other. Two De-Essers doing a little bit of work, adding up to a nice amount of control, instead of just one De-Esser doing a lot of work and sounding really artificial. The next stage would be to add a bit of EQing, and the EQing is just to, again, remove a little bit of the frequencies that are annoying me too much. So let's listen to the with, and then I'll mute it so we can hear it without.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. but you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
This EQ is, again, not doing much, just a few dBs of reduction here and there. We want to do it this way because we are just trying to remove a little bit of the weight of the vocal, because it's a little bit too boomy and a little bit too harsh in the top end. So we're just removing a little bit at 5K, around 5K. Again, same frequency as the de-esser, just removing a little bit of that frequency and a little bit of the muddiness and boom around 100 hertz and 350 or around 300 hertz. Now, as you can tell, the vocal is already sitting in the mix a little bit better because it's not competing with in those frequencies as much.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the...
Those frequencies tend to overpower the mix a little bit, and they make the vocals sit a little bit on top of the mix, while removing a little bit of those frequencies makes the vocals sit a little bit better in the mix. So the next stage would be to add a compressor, and this compressor is just controlling a little bit of the peaks and just evening out even more the peaks. So as you can see, I'm only using a little bit of like 2 or 3 dBs of reduction.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood. You've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
And the thing is, when you're trying to control the peaks, you want to only compress the peaks. So you want to leave the uncompress the vocal as much as possible, or leave the vocal as uncompressed as possible. So as you can tell, only the peaks are triggering the compressor, and most of the vocal is pretty much non-compressed.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
This is really helping us control the peaks, and there's not much to it really. You just have to find the right balance where it's compressing the peaks but not the overall vocal. So the next stage would be the actual nice stage of compression, or the sound stage of the compressor and of compression. And I like to use the Fairchild, for example. Actually, this is my new toy that I bought the other day, and this compressor has so much character, so much vibe, and I love it on vocals, and it just works. Now at this stage I use quite a lot of compression because I want to even out even more all the peaks. And at this point I'm not just compressing for peak reduction or for peak control, but for actual sound of compression, or I want to hear the compression. So this compressor has a tendency to smoothen out the top end, and it kind of adds a little bit to the bottom end, and it makes the vocal a little bit more heavy and a little bit more dense, let's say. So let's hear it with and without, and you'll really hear the difference in sound, in the character of the sound.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood. I don't know how many times I've fallen.
Now, some of you might think that the the de-essing stage, the two de-essing stages at the beginning of the chain might be a little bit overdone, so the vocal might sound a little bit too lispy. But the thing is, the compression, all the various stages of compression will bring back up a little bit of that sibilance. So we want to really overly control the S's at the first stages, at the initial stages, so we can boost them back up and make him extremely even when we get to the compression stages. Now, this compressor to me is just working, and it has the character and vibe that I want. It's making the vocal really compact and even and in your face, and I love it. So let's hear that again with and without. Actually, I'll put it with first, and then I'll take it out, so you can really hear that it's missing all the energy that the compressor is adding.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago.
To me, the vocal with the Fairchild sounds just so much more dense and thick, and I love it. So the last stage of the actual processing is another stage of EQing, and this stage of EQing is actually to boost some frequencies that I want to boost, or cut others that I'm having too much of. I tried this before filming the tutorial, and I'm not loving it so much because the sound of this song doesn't necessarily need it, and just after the first stage of EQing, I sort of got the sound that I wanted. But I'll play it with and without, and you can judge for yourself if it's helping in any way.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
Actually, it might work. It is making it a little bit more thin, but it might just work when we get to the louder parts of the song. So in hindsight, I think it actually makes sense. So next we get to the final stages, which are the final polish. So the final polish is about the small little effects that we can add. The first one would be to add a little bit of reverb, because a vocal that is completely dry just doesn't fit together with the music. It just isn't musical enough, and voices as we hear them are bouncing off walls and are represented in a space. It's not a room without reflections, without any type of reverb, no matter how big or small. So we need to give it a little bit of space around it so it sounds a little bit more natural. And this is what this reverb is doing. It's just pushing the vocal a little bit back in the mix and making it fit a little bit better as it's putting the vocal in an actual room, or the impression of being in an actual room.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull. I don't know how many times I've fallen. I don't know how many times I've fallen. I don't know how many times I've fallen, And honestly, I lost count long ago.
So, I really like the fact of adding just a touch of reverb to a vocal, as it's really setting it into the mix. And this works for pretty much every genre. And the thing is, don't let anyone tell you that reverb is a bad thing on hip-hop vocals or on rock vocals. Actually, it's a great thing, and you really want... if you really want your vocals to be in your face, you need to separate it from the rest of the mix as much as possible. And a little bit of reverb puts it in its own space, puts a vocal in its own space. It's actually fitting the vocal in the mix, but it's separating it from the rest of the mix at the same time. So a vocal that is completely dry will sound just unnatural and quite unprofessional, actually. But just a touch of reverb, really short reverb, like in this case we've got I think it's 0.8 decay time, 0.8 milliseconds, and it just works much better than just a completely dry vocal. Now at this point you can say, okay, so what if I want a little bit more of an actual reverb effect? Now I have this RC24 that is actually doing an actual reverb effect.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up on my feet. Oh, I can taste the blood.
And if this is your thing, if it works for the song, great. I don't find it's actually working too well in this song, so I'm not going to use it, but you get what I'm saying. Reverbs and effects, using a reverb as an actual effect is something that is really dependent on the song, so I'm not going to go into it too much. Another thing that I like to do instead is adding a little bit of delay for the same kind of reasons as the first reverb that we added. Delays work somehow... sometimes better than reverbs at actually pushing the vocal a little bit back in the mix, and it's not so clumsy and dirty as a reverb could be, as a reverb tail could be. So let's listen to this.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago.
And this is what this is doing.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you
just gives a little bit of space around the vocal, and if you don't like the reverb effect, the short reverb effect, you really hate it, but you still need a little bit of space around the vocal, you might want to try delays, as they might work a little bit better for you in the context of a song. In this case, I wanted to use both, so I'm using the delay to just connect the space in between the two lines of the lyrics just a little bit better, so you can hear a little bit of the tail if you listen closely, that connects the two phrases a little bit better.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always been the to pull me back up. I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count.
I'll just exaggerate it a little bit so you can hear it a little bit better.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But you've always...
And it makes a huge difference when there's no actual delay. Now you've gotten used to hearing the connection between the phrases of the lyrics, but if I remove the delay, you'll really hear the difference.
I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly, I lost count long ago. But I don't know how many times I've fallen, and honestly.
Just a touch of that delay can really make a difference, and this is what mixing is about. It's about a thousand of really small moves and elements that you add to a mix to make it sound great. Not about huge delays, huge effects. You don't want to put attention on you as the engineer, you want to put attention on the music, and you want to make the music feel good. Now, apart from the delay and the reverb, the other things are pretty much things that I do on pretty much every mix. So this is a chain that I wanted to show you in this tutorial, so I think we got it covered. Okay people, so this is all we've got time for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to visit pseudoproducer.com/theproducersblog. On the right side of the site you'll find a form. Sign up to that form and download my free ebook, 5 mixing techniques you should be using right now. It'll change your life, you'll love it, and make sure to let me know what you think about it. If you're on mobile, you'll probably find that form at the bottom of the page. Anyhow, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop a comment below if you'd like to see something else in the next video. If you'd like to know something more about this video. And I'll see you in the next episode.